Hello, today I am talking about all things business deductions for meals and travel expenses. If you are a business owner and trying to figure that out before tax time, or if you are a bookkeeper helping business owners with these deductions, definitely keep watching. So starting out with meals, basically the thing that you need to know is there's two types of deductions for meals. So for some meals you get a 50% deduction and some meals you get a 100% deduction. And there's a couple stipulations, but I'm gonna go over the broad categories to start out. For your business, meals can be deducted 100% if it's something like a Christmas party. So if everyone in your office is involved and you get it catered, or maybe you go to a restaurant, usually my clients have a couple parties per year that is for the whole office that applies to this 100% deduction. And then for the meals that you get just 50%, that is when you might take a client out to lunch. For just 2021 and 2022, any meal that you have at a restaurant with a client, even if it's not with everyone in your business, that can be deducted 100%. I'm not sure the reason that this changed temporarily, but I'm assuming it was because of the pandemic and they want to motivate people to go back to restaurants. So I'm going to show you exactly in my chart of accounts within QuickBooks how I set these two categories up and keep track of which things need to be 100% and which things need to be 50%. That being said, I am a bookkeeper, I'm not a tax preparer. So just a little disclaimer, I don't consider it my job as a bookkeeper to know every single tax law and every single thing. And these laws are ever changing. So I don't expect perfection from myself. So definitely leave me a comment down below if I messed anything up or if anything I'm saying is slightly off compared to what you know about tax law. So even though I don't expect myself to know every single law, it is helpful as a bookkeeper to get a general understanding of these things because you are the one inputting all of the transactions into QuickBooks and then giving it to the tax preparer. So you want to make sure you have good communication with who's ever preparing the taxes for the business and make sure they understand what your systems are and make sure you are doing it in a way that makes sense for them. And definitely use that person as a resource if you have any questions. All of my bookkeeping clients have a CPA or someone that is preparing their taxes outside of me. So I often work with that person pretty closely. And if we've never met before, I'm Morgan from FinePoints.biz. I love to help bookkeepers out with their bookkeeping businesses. I have a free masterclass and checklist you can definitely check out. And I would love it if you subscribe to my channel if this is a topic that you're interested in. And I would love it if you give me a thumbs up for a good tax season. So this is a screenshot of my chart of accounts and exactly what it looks like within QuickBooks. I personally created these two accounts. They don't come in QuickBooks, and I did it so I kind of have like a cheat sheet when I'm categorizing stuff so that I can remember what goes where. So you can see I actually put descriptions and I actually put the 50% and the 100% in there. And I put the instances when I need to use each thing. So you might want to know how I can tell the difference between these two. Basically, it's by asking my client / usually I know when they're having those big like once or twice a year parties. And so I know, oh, their Christmas party, I'm sometimes invited to it. You know, their Christmas party was on December 12th. So I know that restaurant is where they went for their Christmas party. If I'm a little bit unsure, I can definitely just stick it in like the Ask My Accountant bucket, which is what I use to like kind of hold transactions that I need to ask clients about. And a couple other logistical things. I recommend that my clients save their paper receipts and then write on it who they went to the business lunch with. So that's usually for like the 50% lunches or whatever they are. The IRS wants to make sure that it is a legitimate business lunch and you are meeting with a client or an employee or someone and it's really business related. And they also say that these expenses cannot be lavish or extravagant. That is some of the IRS wording. There are a lot of different receipt capture apps you can use if you want to utilize technology. I do use that for some clients, but not all, because it is extra steps as a bookkeeper if you want to manage all those receipts, even electronically. I do have a video all about how I use the receipt capture function within QuickBooks Online. You can use it on the mobile app as well. The thumbnail looks like this, and I will link it down in the description box for you also. I also have a video all about quarterly taxes that you might find helpful. I will link that as well for you. And my only other note that might be obvious, but this does come up as a bookkeeper, make sure your client knows that they cannot deduct meals when they're just going out by themselves. Except for maybe when they're traveling, which I will talk about in the next section. But I feel like sometimes my clients like conveniently forget that, oh yeah, they grabbed lunch on the way somewhere. That will not count as a business expense in most cases. Sometimes that gets into a little bit of a morality issue. I do kind of try to nudge my clients to be as forthright as possible. I have a video all about the worst clients. The thumbnail looks like that. And so you can check out that if you are having trouble with some of those clients who maybe are trying to push boundaries a little bit. All right, next we're going to talk about how to deduct travel expenses for your small business. So we are talking about when the owner or an employee go somewhere out of the city for a business travel expense. It is not a business travel expense to and from their place of business. So if they're driving from home to their business, that never counts as a travel expense. However, if they are at work and then they go somewhere in their personal car, that sometimes can be a travel expense. So I'm going to talk about that next, so stay tuned for that in just a minute. So some things you need to think about when you're traveling for business, and I'm going to go into each of these in a little more detail, is you need to leave your tax home, you need to be doing the majority of business on this trip, and the expenses need to be ordinary and necessary. So leaving your tax home just means you go outside the city where your business is located. You're paying taxes based on usually where your business office is, not where you live. And so if you're leaving that vicinity, then it is a business trip, and it's usually for more than a day. And so you can deduct all of the travel expenses you would imagine. So tickets, plane tickets, bus, train, however you're getting there, transportation tickets, any lodging that you have. So whether it's Airbnb, hotel, or wherever you're staying. If you have a rental car, that is deductible, as well as 50% of meals while you're traveling. And again, I believe that 50% is temporarily 100% for restaurants. If you have any really specific questions about what is deductible or really anything in this video, I would definitely encourage you to talk to a tax preparer. I'm not really going to be able to answer all the nitty-gritty questions about your particular situation in the comments. I just don't feel qualified to advise you on those type of things. Remember, I am a bookkeeper and my job is to start organizing these finances, and then someone else is in charge of really submitting to them to the IRS. So that being said, this is what my chart of accounts looks like for this area. So I have a travel bucket that's kind of like overarching, and then I have sub accounts for lodging and for travel expenses. And you can break these up either less or more or however you want. This is just how I like to organize it. My client that I use this the most for, they are traveling a lot to continuing education conferences. And so in that case, I actually have a different bucket for continuing education. And so it's like the fees of the conference and stuff, like they have to pay like a couple $100s to go to the conference. So that I put in another bucket. And then meals for travel, I just put again in with the normal meal bucket. You can separate those out if you have to, but everything is getting deducted 50%, so it's kind of up to you. And I have seen the question for like maybe little snacks that might be in the office. So maybe they buy some granola bars and some soda for the fridge in the kitchen at work. I was told to put those under office supplies because it's not really like meals or anything. It's just like kind of a benefit that the employer provides. So let me know in the comments if that's where you put those things or if you have a different suggestion. And I did have a client once that wanted to track each business trip, so they had a few business trips per year and they wanted to kind of have like a little mini profit and loss for each trip, like how much did that cost us? So at that time I did that using tags. So I would tag all of those like winter conference or whatever it was, and then you could pull a report with just those things, I believe. All right, so we talked about the types of things that are deductible. I want you to make sure that you are doing that stipulation that is doing mostly business. So if you have a 5-day trip, you need to spend, I think, at least 3 days doing like work. So you need to do the majority of business stuff on the trip. And then if you have a little bit of vacation like snuck in there as well, that is okay. I think when you're going out of the country, it's even less. I think it's just 25% needs to be business. And if you are bringing family along or something and you need to upgrade your lodgings because of that, you can deduct the amount that you would have paid just for yourself. So if your hotel room would have cost $200 but now costs $400, just deduct that $200 that is reasonable for you as a one person traveling. Same with plane tickets, you can't deduct your whole family, just deduct yourself. All right, and what about if you are driving your own car? This is a really good question. So you have two choices of how you can deduct this information, and you can't mix and match them. You have to choose either one or the other for the whole tax year. The first way is actual expenses, and the second way is called a standard mileage. So actual expenses is basically just what it sounds like. You take whatever you spent that year on your car. So the gas, your insurance, maybe a couple car repairs, and that is your personal car. So you take it as a percentage of how much you used it for work. So if you used it for work 25% of the time, you would take 25% of the whole year's expenses. And do make sure these are all qualified business trips. Like I said, this doesn't count just driving to and from work. So definitely talk with your tax preparer about the very specific rules for this. And with both of these types of deductions, the actual expenses or the standard deduction, I personally usually do not track these things in QuickBooks. So the car repairs and all that isn't usually thought of as a business expense necessarily. So my client is tracking that for themselves outside of QuickBooks and then probably submitting like a spreadsheet or something to their tax preparer. Same with the standard mileage. There are ways to put it within QuickBooks. That is just not something that I have experience with. Okay, and now for the standard mileage, which I think is probably a little more common. I have more experience doing it this way. This is where you keep a log of all the business related driving you did for the year, and then you just times that mileage per, like it's like 56 cents. So you get 56 cents for every mile that you drove. And the standard mileage does change like different years. So check what it is for the year that you are in now. And there are definitely apps you can use to help track these miles. QuickBooks Online does have a tracking thing that you can use on their mobile device. I haven't used it. I found a tutorial though. I will link it in the description box below if you're interested in that. Here's a quick screenshot. You basically download the app and then it knows when you are driving, and then you can swipe left or right. If it's a business transaction, then it adds it into your business log. And then if it's personal, then it just deletes it out of there. So let me know in the comments if you've used this and if you like it and if you think I should try it out. That was a lot of information, but let me know if you want to see other videos similar to this, different kinds of deductions and what you're interested in. Leave me a comment down below and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. All right, I will talk to you again next week. Thanks.